My name is Mimi Huser-Fagnant. I'm from the Beadery Craft Products. I work here as a designer, and what I'm trying to do with this video is to help you as a demonstrator learn about our products, learn tips and hints that we've discovered working with our products, and to explain things that we would like you to say while you're doing our demonstration or our make and take table. What I have in front of me here is one of the countertop displays that we sell our kits in. In the countertop, we have our bug kits. This is a collection we came out with recently that features glow-in-the-dark beads, and they're designed for children to be able to make. Within this assortment, we do have 6 different bugs, and within each packet you get 2 each of one type of bug. We call this a point of purchase display, and it's designed to go right into a store. It comes all packed, and it's designed to go right in the store and to sell out. The retailer, however, can purchase these items individually or in a sidekick, and I'll show you later what we call the sidekick. Over to my right, I do have a display board here of the bugs that are in the countertop display. Over here, as you can see, are the 6 items with the glow-in-the-dark beads, and that's a great feature for children. They really love the glow-in-the-dark. Let me show you our sea creatures, which are right behind here. This again is another assortment. This is our most recent assortment of kits that we've designed, and both of these style kits do feature chenille stems as the base of the creatures, so you can see how easy it is to just put the beads onto the chenille stems. We also have a pamphlet that does go along with these, and as you're working the make and take table, you will have these available to show your customers. Along with this will be a sell sheet, a price list, and if the customers start asking questions that you don't know the answers to, that's okay. You can just get in touch with your salesperson who's from our company representing the booth. Within each pamphlet, we have many different styles of our kits. Over here on my left, I have what we call the sidekick. And you can see bead boxes are featured in this particular sidekick. Most all of our kits and bead boxes do also come in the sidekick as well as the countertop and individually. Over here you can see that we have many styles of shapes of boxes and sizes of boxes to fit different price points. In the pamphlet I have here, the bead boxes are all featured, and it's all in color, and in the back of it, it shows what items do come in the countertops and the sidekicks. Over here to my right, we have some of the other samples of bead boxes, and here is what we call the Bead Blast collection on my left, and this is featuring the neon beads, and kids love the neon beads. That's a favorite of theirs. And to my right, we also have a collection of different shapes. We also have our watches featured in this display board, and our suitcase down here on the left side, and again another heart box. These items that you see on the boards, you will have at your show, and you can present these to your customers if they're asking about a particular item. As I showed you before with the bead kits, you can show the individual kits to the customer. If questions are asked that you can't answer, don't forget you can just talk to the salesperson that's with the beadery and refer the customer to the salesperson. featuring are Adornables, boxes for decorating. They're one of my personal favorites that we sell at the Beadery. And by the way, we manufacture here at the Beadery. Everything we sell is made in the United States. So you can pass that along to your customer also. To my left, we have some samples of made-ups that we have on display boards, and you will have display boards also at your show, so you can show your customers. Down at the bottom of the display board, we have one here that's using a lot of ribbons, laces, and trims. And we call this type cut, paste, and assemble because your customer doesn't have to have any skill to create this box. I also notice here that there's a charm on here. So if your customer sells charms, this is a great way for them to incorporate the items they have in their stores. One of the fun things about the Adornables is the fact that you can put just about any craft product on the Adornables. Another box on the board over to my left is the box here, which is the egg shape that the little chick is in. This has decoupage on the top of that, and decoupage works very well on the boxes. Down below that, to the left, we have one here that's painted. When you paint with the Adornables, or on the Adornables, you want to use a gloss type paint, and any company that produces the glossy paints will work well. And the reason we use the glossy paints is because you don't need to clear your box after you've completed the project. If you use the clear sprays that are out on the market, sometimes they have a reaction because they're petroleum based, and so is the box. So the surface might not be as smooth looking when you're done with spraying. So I avoid sprays when I paint on the boxes. One other thing you can do with the boxes and paint, or you can create the beautiful faux finishes that are out on the market now that you see in magazines and in gift stores. With the faux finish, you can work with your glossy paints again and your sponges, and then you don't need to clear because the finish of the paint on the faux finish boxes will be the same shine as on the Adornables. To the lower left-hand corner of the board, I show here the ribbon embroidery. Needlework works very well on the boxes, and we've had great fun using the needlework skills. So if your store features needlework, they might feature cross-stitch or silk ribbon embroidery or just regular embroidery. The customer can incorporate the box with the skills they already have. Your customers can create great classes using the Adornables because you don't need to spend time sanding or priming or finishing the boxes. They can sit down and do what they like to do best, which might be the needlework or it might be stenciling. You can use rubber stamps on the boxes, and most times with the rubber stamps we use the embossing powders, and we can fill in with a color using the embossing pens and put a clear embossing powder over the whole project, and again heat to activate the embossing powder. A lot of times I put florals, as you can see up here. I put the floral silk flowers on the Adornables also. I think that's about all my board shows, but there are other things that you can do to the boxes. As I've mentioned before, it's almost unlimited, the range of things you can put on the boxes. We have other boards that feature children's items, and a lot of felt and pom-poms have been used on those boxes to make them be very colorful and fun for children. You might feature your boxes to have a particular holiday in mind. The Christmas boxes look wonderful when you decorate with your ribbons and your fabrics that have a theme of your Christmas. Whatever holiday you like and you want to feature can be featured on the Adornables. Next, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to set up for a demonstration and show you tips and hints on how to present your demonstration or your make and take project. Here I've set up for a make and take. That's probably what you'll be doing as a demonstrator for us, is running the make and take tables. And what we normally do is we set up the table, try to be as neat as you can throughout the make and take. However, that's not easy because you're fumbling in boxes to get more supplies out for your customers. But do keep clearing away your debris as you're working. On the table, I do have the project sheet taped to the table in front of the customer, and I have all the tools out on the table ready for the customers to use. Make sure you plug in your glue guns ahead of time so they warm up, and do warn the consumers or your customers that there might be some danger. In other words, the glue is hot. If your customers aren't familiar with glue, that's an important item to add in. These, however, are cool melt glue guns that we're using today, and in your make and takes that's also should be true. And they are featured by AdTech. When we have a company who sponsors us or perhaps gives us free product to use in our make and take items, we do list their name on the project sheet, and those can be given out to the customers. The project sheet and the names of the customers who've helped us supply the make and take items. I'm going to now do the make and take so I can show you some hints of what we've learned in working with the boxes. The finished product is here, and I'll put that out front for you to see. You should be supplied with 2 ready-made make and take items before with your shipment of items for the show. And what we will also do for you is send you components in a little kit with a project sheet, so ahead of time, before the show starts, you can make up your project. And when you get to the show and you open the boxes, bring your project with you, and you'll find out if you've gone astray from the project sheet, or if it's different from the sample. You can figure out why and correct that before you start teaching the project. Okay, now what I'm working with here is one of the small Adornables in the round shape, and our president has decided that the shape or the side that's the bottom of the box is the one without the rim. This, you can see here, has the rim on it, and when you take off the top, he doesn't want to see the functional part of the box, so we start with that as the bottom. One of the first things you can do is work with the trim. The trim, this particular trim is called a gimp braid, and this, as you can see, ravels quite a bit. So what we do, and we found works very, very well, is we put glue on the back side of the trim and put quite a blob on there. This is on the project sheet. What I do is wait a minute or two for it to dry a bit, and then I press my finger into it. And that wasn't quite dry, so you'll see that this is very sticky here, but it will dry. By pressing your fibers into your sort of wet glue, you're stopping those fibers from fraying. So we'll cut right through the glue that's on the back side. When you're working with the boxes, we've found that the easiest thing to do is to start with the box closed. So you're going to hold that in one hand. The box closed, you're going to apply some glue to the surface of the box and press your trim into that. And that's the fresh cut that you made. Working your way around the box, you can add just small bits of glue around the box, making sure that you're lining up with the edge of your box. Going to continue here. Don't let the customer put the glue all the way around the box. or it'll be dry by the time they get to the end of the box. So you just do it in small segments. When you get to the end of the box, you add a little bit of extra glue right here, and when you come to that spot with your GIMP, you're going to press into that extra glue there, and that holds all the fibers down. You can then trim off very close to the box, and you shouldn't have any fraying happen to your trim. Okay, the next step will be to apply the trim that goes around the top of the box. And as you can see here, this is a beautiful braid that has some pearls on it. This one doesn't fray much or ravel, so it's okay to just start with this one. And you'll find with working with the trims that frequently there are trims that ravel a lot, and there are trims that don't, and you can handle them accordingly. So you can start this trim by just putting glue on the box and pressing your trim into it, and continue working around the box. Again, in small segments, so your glue doesn't dry. You probably see the strings from the glue gun, and that does happen with the low temp glue guns more often than the high temp. High temp glue guns we wouldn't use for customers because they really can burn themselves severely with the glue. And again, add a little extra glue where you're ending and press into that glue. Press your fibers into the glue. Okay, and again, the glue dries very quickly and you can cut off flush with the box. If you want to get fussy and glue down some of the pearls that you see, you can work your way around the box by doing that. And it will hug the box more. As you can see in this finished one, it really goes around the curves if you glue it down. If not, it'll sort of be standing up like you see here. But I would fuss with that later. To start the top of the box, you take a small piece of lace, put some glue in the center, and start pressing your lace into it, but overlap your lace in the center, overlap it, in other words, gather it a little bit more in the center and press into it. Now, if the customer's afraid they're going to be burned, they can actually take the, the point of the scissors and press in there to hold it. It's the glue, you'll find out it's warm, but it's not going to blister you. But one important thing doing a demonstration is not to make the customer feel like they can't handle the project, or make them feel stupid or not up to par with the people sitting next to them. You can trim off this extra. Wait a minute, I need a little more glue here. You can trim off this extra. What I do if someone really messes up a box, which is possible, some people just don't listen to you, what you're saying, or they don't follow along with the project sheet. Our project sheets are wordless, so most people should be able to just look at the pictures. We did this for foreign accounts. However, we found that the English-speaking people also would rather just look at the pictures. They don't want to take the time to read. So I started to say that if you have a customer that's really messed up their box, and with the trim or maybe applying fabric, what I do is if they're not too far into the box, I just take the box away gently. I'll say, well, let me help you fix that. And take the box away, and if it's unfixable, I throw it in the trash, and I get another box and smile, and I get them caught up to where they were in the project, and then hand it back to them. And explain that, well, if you put the trim a little closer this way or a little closer that way, it might make it easier for them. So it's important to make the customer happy and make them feel good about the projects. Make them feel that they've accomplished something. I'm putting the roses on. You can see that any of these are pre-made roses, but any of your florals would work well here. And this is a good time to tell the customer that whatever they sell in their store, they can use on the box. and we'll put the last rows right there. And there you can see we've completed the Make and Take project in a very short amount of time, and we're ready for another project. You probably will have all day working on one project, however. I'm going to switch right now to a different project and continue. Here we are again with the project called Country Morning. This is a box that has fabric completely covering it, and this is an important box to demonstrate because sometimes people are afraid to put fabric on the boxes, and you'll see that it's very easy. When we're working with fabric, and this will be indicated on your project sheet also wordless, and it should be easy to teach. What we do is we work with one portion of the box at a time at this point, and we put some glue on the box, having the grain of the fabric run up and down and left and right, and I just put the glue on and press this fabric into it. I put glue at the opposite side and press into it. As I'm pressing, I'm pulling on that fabric to make it be nice and tight when I end up looking on the front side. Over here, I add a little bit of glue and pull the fabric into it and press down. On the fourth side, again, I add some glue and pull the fabric into it. Then I try to hold the box more like this, so I can see the good side of the box, but I can also look in and see where I'm gluing. I'm going to fill in the space. In between the spaces we've already glued. Then I'm going to turn so I can see the front, and what I want to do is pull and wiggle on the fabric. And what that does is it works out the wrinkles that might be getting glued down. You should be able to cover the box without much trouble whatsoever. Again, here you fill in and pull and wiggle that down. And the third side, pull and wiggle and work those wrinkles out. This happens to be a cotton fabric, and your cotton fabrics do give very nicely and stretch right over any of our shapes. So you'll find that any shape will work, even the heart with an inside curve at the top of it. Once you have your gluing done, you want to make sure that your customer hasn't glued, like right here, I've glued on the flat side of the box. So what I want to do is just pull that glue away from the flat surface of the box. If you leave that gluey or with fabric in the way, you're not going to be able to close the box properly. So now I'm just going to cut. If you notice, there's an angle on my scissors. It's not flat like the edge of the box is. It's really at an angle to the edge, because that allows me to cut off very, very close. Cut the fabric off very, very close and not have it hang over the edge. So you really want to check the customer's box at this point and make sure that they do end up with a flat surface around this edge. And what I do if they're not catching on is I just ask them if I could see their box for a minute, and I show them how to cut closer. There's a lump of glue. I just cut right through that glue. These scissors are nice scissors. They're wonderful, and we abuse them terribly, but they seem to just keep on working. And I do cut through that glue and get as close as I possibly can so I have a nice flat surface. I'm going to quickly just show you on the other side, on the other piece, how to glue this on once again so I can continue with the project. You might refer to the gluing here as north and south that I've glued now, and then tell them east and west. And I think I'm running out of the glue stick. Bring it up, press into it. Let me add one more glue stick here. So you need to, while you're watching your customers, you also need to be restocking the table, making sure that everything's available for them to use, which is quite the challenge, and answer questions that they may have about products that we're selling. So I understand fully the job you're doing, and it takes a lot of talking and a lot of patience, because you need to present a good, you need to make your customers feel good while they're doing their projects. Okay, so I'm done with that. Whoops, one more. Cut the edge off. Again, very, very close. Sometimes you get a customer who might want to stray from the project. You know, instead of 3 sunflowers, they might want to put 8 or 10. And then the neighbor sees that, and then they want to put 8 or 10, or maybe 12. So you have to sort of gently limit them to the project, and on occasion I have let them go beyond that, but we've counted out the project supplies for a certain number of people. So you've got to, you know, limit the amounts that they use and let them do their experimenting when they get back to their shop. Okay, now to apply the trim here to the box once you have it fabric covered. Again, this trim doesn't ravel much, so I'm going to just speed by and start with the trim. Speed by making sure it doesn't ravel, because I know this one's not going to ravel. And again, you want to hold both your top and bottom together, and people don't want to do this, but after working with the boxes so much, we've found that this really is the way to apply your trim. What happens if you do not do this is you have the tendency to glue beyond the edge of the box, trying to in fact cover every speck of the fabric that's down first. And in doing that, you'll have overlapping trim when you try to put the box together. And if you work quickly with this glue, if something seems to have gone astray in your gluing, you can pull it up and reposition it, and you'll be all set. And as I said, if somebody really messes up a box, you know, you can just, we have plenty of boxes here. You can just, you know, take it from them gently and replace it with something that looks a little bit better. But explain to them how to get to that point, because they might have been gabbing with their neighbor while you were applying, you know, teaching that portion of your make and take. Now I'm going to start again and do my other side right away. And as I'm starting to glue here, you can see that you can get close to the other trim without overlapping the box or overlapping the other trim. So you have a nice line or a nice edge here. I have my strings again from my glue gun, tangling everything. This again is one of our cut, paste, and assemble type boxes. Very, very easy to do. And, you know, maybe the store owner sells fabric, or maybe they do quilts, and they have just scads of little pieces left over. Well, they can just do lots and lots of boxes using leftover pieces of fabrics and trims. Or maybe the customer sells silk flowers. And when you have silk flowers in your store, what you find is a lot of the heads pop off the flowers, and you can't sell the stem, and you can't bear to throw away the flowers. And most people have a big bag of flowers that they can't really use for anything, but they would like to. Well, here's the place to use them. The Adornables make a great spot to just put a few flowers on. And that's all you do to end this box. Is you put some glue down and put your, well, wait a minute, let's put some greens in here. And you can cut those apart if you chose to, or you can see what I did is I just spread them out and add some more glue on the top to hold the flowers themselves. And you can put 3 down. I usually like the application of 3 leaves and 3 flowers. They seem to sort of look natural. And when they're doing that, they can leave a little space on this side to put their bow. And the bow is made out of raffia. And let's see here. This is probably quite a bit of raffia. They don't need so much. It's also thick raffia or wide raffia, so they might choose to just rip it a little bit so the pieces are smaller and work very well. What I do is I tie the bunny ear bow here with my ribbons or with the raffia, and I'll go through the bunny ear bow more carefully on another project. So I'm just going to tie this bow, and you can readjust it to get the loops to be smaller or more appropriate size for your box. And you might want to trim the ends off individually so it doesn't look like they were all trimmed off at once. Okay, that's good enough. And then you want to place your bow over here where you like it. And add some glue. And your bow. And there you can see we have the completed country morning box. Again, cut, paste, and assemble, and very quick and easy to do. And the customers, by the way, are free to change our project sheets. You give them out at the Make and Takes. They can take them back to their stores. They can reproduce them. They can change sources, or they can change supplies as they want to meet the products that they sell in their stores. And that's perfectly fine with the Beadery. So there you have the country morning, and we'll get to another Make and Take item. Here I have the project we call Monet's Garden. This has a lot of features in it, so I thought I would show it to you. You might not be using these exact projects when you get to do your Make and Take, but the troubles that you might come across or that your customers will come across will certainly happen throughout what I'm telling you and will apply to your projects. Here we are doing the fabric covering of the box the same way as I showed you before. This particular fabric is particularly hard to work with. Probably the worst fabric that I've ever used with the Adornables. And I'll show you the problems that happen with it, and the reason we're working with this particular fabric is because I ordered one product and assumed it was a regular cotton moire, and this came through to be a very stiff, very, very polyester, plasticky type fabric. So what I did a Make and Take using this particular fabric, and what I told the customers was that if they could successfully come up with a project using this particular fabric, they could put any fabric on the boxes. We've used velvets, we've used burlaps, we have used thicker fabrics, we've used cross-stitch fabrics, and they work just beautifully. This, as I say, is the worst fabric I've ever used. So, I'll show you why in a minute. I'm here to almost to my last side, and you can see there are wrinkles on the top surface here that you want to make sure that you are pulling as tightly as you possibly can, pull and wiggle, to get as many wrinkles out, and to make sure that the fabric is conforming to the shape of the box. If somebody's fabric is so loose that it's not conforming to the shape of the box, I would actually try to pull the fabric away from the box for them. I would ask them for it and say, let me help you with that. And pull the fabric away from the box and re-glue, and just pull again very, very hard to try to straighten out the fabric and make it more tight on the box. As you can see with this one, this bad fabric, as you can see with this, I'm getting quite a few wrinkles in here. Don't worry so much about that as long as it looks nice and tight on the surface. Because what's going to happen is the trim we use on this particular box is nice and wide and will cover up lots of wrinkles. So that's another way to guarantee or to assure your customer that they're doing an okay job. You know, if they're unhappy with the wrinkles or not quite satisfied or getting frustrated, hopefully we've given you a much better piece of fabric and you won't have any trouble. What I'm seeing here after I've glued is I do see a gap down here where there isn't enough glue. Before the customer cuts it off, I would ask them to see the box, and then I would be checking to see if there are places where the box is not glued to the fabric, or the fabric's not glued to the box. And again, pull up and pull hard on that. And I see one more place here where I skipped altogether, so I'll go back and fill in. And again, pull and wiggle and get that to fit as tightly on the box as possible. So you can see the wrinkles that I'm getting here, and I'm accepting those as being okay. As I told you in the last box, just make sure that when they cut, they get as close to the very edge as they can, and if there are any hunks of glue, that they cut them off with the scissors. If they have a lot of glue on the surface, what you might suggest to them is, if it looks okay, if it looks like they're on the right direction, you might tell them to, when they get home, just take an X-Acto knife and scrape the surface, this flat surface of the box. The scissors work a little bit. I have some glue on the surface here, and you can sort of pick that off. Sometimes your fingernail can just get it off. So sometimes you can repair it right away, and if it looks like it's quite gluey, they might want to use the X-Acto knife. Now, here I've gone a little ahead of myself. I assumed that the box was covered top and bottom, and I have covered the box top and bottom. So that's okay. Again, I'm going to be working with a ravelly gimp, so I do want to flip the gimp over to the back side and apply some glue, as I did in the first demonstration. Have them wait a minute to press into it until it's a little bit drier and safer to touch. Again, now you can probably press into it and pull up. If it's stuck to their fingers, they can just roll it up into a ball. And now the glue should be just about dry enough to cut through. And there you have an edge that's not going to ravel. Now again, I work with my box top and bottom together and start gluing around, keeping the braid on the edge of either the top or the bottom, and work around the box. You can, if you have a breather in your make and take, you can be cutting up ahead of time, cutting up whatever the project sheet says. If they want 12 inches of braid, you can cut up 12 inches of braid. Sometimes what I do is I put a little mark on the table to measure my 12 inches, so then I just pull up the braid and mark, or not mark the trim, but just measure the trim and cut right there. And get a little pile ahead of yourself so that if a whole gang of people sit down, you're prepared. Sometimes I've been 3 deep with people waiting to do the particular make and take. Again, when you come around to the end here, you add a little more extra glue at the end, or actually at the beginning of your piece of braid, and press into it, and that gets all your fibers down into that glue, and trim off flush with the box. You want to tell the people to check and make sure they can still open their boxes. Sometimes they're so anxious with the glue they get a little on both sides and they need to pry them apart with scissors, but they will come apart. But do make an announcement to check the boxes now and then so they don't have that trouble. I'm not going to finish with this box. What I will do is finish the box. In other words, I'm not going to finish this piece right here. I will finish decorating the box for you instead of putting the trim on both pieces. My next step is to take the lace, and I just do a little fan using the accordion pleat, just like that. To that gathered end, I'm going to wrap a little piece of wire, and here's where you need to use a tool that's called a wire cutter. Please don't let them cut with our scissors. That will ruin them. The glue's not going to harm the scissors, but cutting with the wire with the scissors is going to ruin the scissors. Okay, so there I have a little fan shape, and to that fan shape, what I'm going to do is also with the excess wire, just wire on 2 of the sprays of flowers. Just with the extra wire, wrap around a couple of times so it holds them in place. You will be gluing also, so don't fret too much about how well that's connected. And as you can see, you're just going to put this on your box. If your raw edge is sticking out and you don't like that, you can put your glue down and press that raw edge into the glue so it's folded under. So you've attached your fan and flowers. Next, what I'm going to do is tie the bow that goes on here. And this again, as I mentioned before, was the bunny ear bow. And I'll go through it twice, but here's what I do, is I put 2 loops up with a big space in between for the bunny ear bow. And to that beginning, I cross, these are the ears of the bunny, I cross the ears over one another and push one ear down, and you can see this hole here. You push that ear down and have it come out the hole. Adjust your lengths of your loops until you're happy. And what happens with this bow, this is why I do like to use this bow, is you always end up with 2 tails going down and 2 loops coming up to make a nice bow. A lot of times what happens, if you make a different type of bow, you end up with 1 tail up, 1 tail down, and the same with your loops. So this always ends up with a nice even bow, and as you can see, I trimmed the ends. And we'll just apply a lump of glue here and press the bow into the glue at the end of the project, so your glue doesn't show. I can see mine a little bit there. You finish your project by adding 1 or 2 of the larger flowers. And my glue is still wet, and I had enough down there that that's going to stick. And I'll just add a little bit more here, and this is going to stick. So you can see that we've made a nice looking project in a very short amount of time, and I think your customers will be very pleased. I did mention before that I would show you the bunny ear bow again. So here I have a different piece of ribbon, and I will show you that bow again. People really like to learn this bow, and it's really nice if you can teach them something while you're doing a make and take or a demonstration. I called it the bunny ear bow. What I do is I hold the ribbon so I have 2 bunny ears right here up, and a big space in between the bunny ears. What I do is I cross one bunny ear over another, and you can see that you get a hole down here when you do that. When you cross over the bunny ear, that hole is where you want it to poke out of. And you can see there it is poking out, so I just pull it and readjust my tails, and here are my 2 loops for my bow, and I do just keep readjusting until I'm happy with the size of my loops and the size of my tails. As I mentioned before, the reason I do like this bow, and so will your customers, is that you do always get loops that are 2 loops up and 2 tails down, and that makes a nice looking bow. And if they're putting it on their box, this particular ribbon has, well, now I have it correct, but it has a right side and a wrong side. But one of the advantages to gluing it on the Adornable box is to they can put their glue down, and if this is on the wrong side, they can just flip it over and press it down into some glue, showing the right side or the good side of the ribbon. So I'll put that away, and I'm going to get to some ribbon embroidery projects that you might be asked to teach in your make and takes. I've got 2 boxes here that I'm going to show you how to work with. I've got a couple because I want particular stitches shown. These stitches aren't hard. There are only 2 basic stitches that I'll be working with here, so you can see that that's pretty easy. What I've done is I've worked with a product called Aida Plus Cloth, and that's distributed by Easy Internationals. And the ribbon that I'm working with, the silk ribbon, is from Japan, and it's called Makuba ribbon, and it's lovely ribbon to work with. This happens to be one of the wider ribbons. I believe this is called a 7mm wide ribbon. The ribbon that's on this particular project, I believe, is called a 4mm. Most often we're working with the 4s. But let me show you this particular stitch, which is called a Japanese leaf stitch. And let me show you how it works with the, without my glasses, and with the wider ribbon. You can see here I start coming up from the center of the flower, and all I'm doing is leaving a very small space to put French knots later. The pattern that's given to you on this particular product or project might show a larger opening, but you have your customers come in closer, so 3 French knots will cover the inside of this. What I've started with here is I've gotten the green down in the manner in which the pattern shows, and then now I've started my red and I'm almost finishing. I'll show you the Japanese leaf stitch with a smaller or more narrow width also. But what I've done is I've come up from the center and laid the silk across my surface and pierce the silk where I want to end the stitch, and that's done like this. I hold the ribbon flat while I'm wrestling with the ribbon here, and let it go into the opening or the puncture point. And when you're doing this, you want to pull your red fabric until you get this nice little point at the top of your stitches, and that helps it look more like a petal. So I think I've got one more here to finish up. The wider silk also doesn't go through the Aida Plus cloth as easily as the more narrow, so the consumer might be struggling a little bit here. I always watch and see what their center looks like, though, because they can go a little astray here. And you want to save them from having to fill in a great big center there, because the French knots do take a little time. But encourage them with the ribbon embroidery and remind them that no 2 flowers are alike. Now you can see there that I punctured the place where I wanted my stitch to end and pull through until I get a nice point that looks like a petal of a flower. When I end my stitches, what I do is I just take a couple of stitches in the back side of the work that goes through some of the other ribbon embroidery. You need to be careful not to really pull tightly on the back side, because what happens is it might pull some of the other stitches that looked good on the surface before you flipped it over. So take a couple of stitches and cut this off. If you're working with a particularly dark fabric, or a dark ribbon, which I am, you want to make sure that those tails end up going within the embroidery. In other words, when you flip this over and you finally mount it on your box, you don't want to see your tail through the Aida Plus cloth. I have another stitch here to do using some cotton. We call this cotton pearl. This is from DMC, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of French knots with the cotton pearl, if I can thread the needle without my glasses on, which is quite a challenge. Even though the needles are nice and easy to work with, and they're wide eyes, very large eyes, I do tie a knot at the end. Sometimes I find my silk does go through, and your customer can do whatever knot she's comfortable with. I have too much cotton here, so I'm going to cut a little off, and that's what you should tell them with the ribbon embroidery too, is they don't need to have more than a 15-inch piece of silk, or the fabric phrase, the fiber. So what I'm going to do here are some French knots to fill in this center. You come up from the back side, you put your piece down. I hold the fiber coming out of the fabric with my left hand. In that section, it's about a 3-inch section. What I do is I point my needle at my left hand, and I wrap the needle and the thread 3 times. Now I do usually wrap around 3 times because it makes a better, a more substantial knot. Some of your books and some of our project sheets say 2 times around, but I would go 3 times around, and that's what I have here. Now I swing my needle down so it's at the surface of the Aida cloth and pierce the surface. Now you can see that I have loops here around my needle, and I pull so the loops are a little tighter around the shank of the needle, and I hold everything down and continue going through the surface. And what I've done is I'm still holding, and I have that loop getting smaller and smaller, and when it gets very small I let go, and that usually forms a nice French knot. Now if your customers are having trouble with making a French knot, they say, well, I don't have a French knot, I've done everything right and I don't have a French knot. What happens, there's 3 times around, swing your needle around and pierce the surface. What happens oftentimes when they've done everything correctly but they can't, they don't end up with a knot, is they've pierced the exact same hole that they came through to begin the stitch. You have to go 1 fiber over, or a couple fibers over, when you go back down through the surface. Now here again you see that it's wrapped around the shank of the needle a little loosely. I tighten up just a little bit and continue pushing down and pulling through the back side. I'm still holding so it doesn't loosen up on me. Not holding tight, but just holding. And you can see I let go at the last minute and continue tightening the knot. Now 3 might do it, maybe I need 4 for this one, but I'll do this one more time and show you. What might happen, I can see now that I'm focusing a little bit on my project, so you might find a French knot that has a big loop on it, and your customers don't know how to get rid of that. Well, a lot of times that's too late now to get rid of, but you can hide it. That's one of the nice things about ribbon embroidery or embroidery, is you can hide a lot of mistakes. If you remember that all your flowers and all your leaves in nature are different from each other, so can your stitches be. I have yet to create a ribbon embroidery project that exactly duplicates the one I made prior to that one. Okay, wrap around 1, 2, 3. Don't forget you're pointing at your left hand. Swing your needle down and pierce your surface. Don't go in the same hole. Now remember I said they might have a loop there that's looking a little bit loopy and giving them trouble? I'm just going to grab the loop that I've created and incorporate it in my knot to try to hide the loop. So I go in the surface, I hold down, and continue pulling my needle until the loop is small and in control. And I'm just going to leave this with 3 for now. On the back side, you can tie a small knot, or you can take a stitch. I've done both with ribbon embroidery and with my regular embroidery, and because you're going to glue this down to your box, you don't have to be particularly fussy about the back side. Years ago, if someone embroidered and the back side didn't look just wonderful, that was considered to be poor workmanship. But with silk ribbon embroidery in particular, you do keep traveling and you do end up with a little bit of a mess on the back. Here what I've done is I've centered my Aida cloth and added a little glue underneath the edge of the Aida. In other words, I'm holding it with one hand, just 2 fingers, and sneaking the glue underneath so I know I'm still lined up. You don't need a lot of glue. You're only gluing what's the very edge of this, what's close to the edge. You're not gluing the entire surface, and that's something that's very important when you're working with fabrics. Is you do not want to glue the entire surface, because then you might have a lump from the hardened glue, and that will be very distracting. Okay, here I'm finishing and pressing down. By the way, one of the advantages to the Aida Plus cloth is the fact that you don't need to have a hoop to work in. We do have adornable kits that we just came out with that are not on Aida Plus cloth, and I'll be showing those to you later. Here I'm working with a trim that ravels, so I did put the glue on the back side of my trim, waited a minute, press into it, and then cut through the glue. So I know I can start gluing this down without any problem. The glue strings sometimes stick to the adornable box, but they can be removed by rubbing hard. I'm just now going to put a little bit of glue down on the intersection between the Aida Plus cloth and the box itself and press my trim into it. Now I want to try to be careful now and create a nice oval because this is going to be seen. And you can see, just put a little bit on and press down. Oh, one nice thing about this glue gun from AdTech is the nozzle. Next time it comes into view, you want to take a look at it. It's a very small point nozzle, which allows you to get into smaller places than using the other version of a nozzle. The glue gun itself comes with 6 different tips, and you can see I can just make a nice small line of glue. And I'll be done with gluing this. Add a little extra where I started with the trim, and glue. Put this in the glue and press your fibers of your trim into that wet glue. Cut off right at the beginning and ending point there, and you don't overlap your trims at this point. They just butt one another. And you can clean up your glue strings. This box, the directions, also has the trim going around the edge of the adornable box, but I'm not going to do that. I think you've seen enough of that. I'm going to go to another box which has some French knots and that Japanese stem stitch in it. You'd be surprised at how many different looks you can get just with 2 or 3 stitches. Right now, I do have my, I'm coming to the end of my silk ribbon. So what I'm going to do is stop this piece because I really haven't shown you the first part because I was in progress with those projects. Sometimes if your knot comes up like this and you're not comfortable with where it's going to tie itself or tighten itself, what I do is I poke my needle point right into the loop and tighten up by pulling and making the loop smaller and smaller and smaller, and it'll tighten up right at the surface of your needle work. And trim this off. And now I'm going to start fresh and show you how to do the needle lock, which is on first step on, I think, all of your project sheets. Again, tell your customers that they don't need a large piece or a long piece of silk ribbon. Again, without my glasses, I've successfully threaded the needle. Okay, so what you're going to do is thread the needle. The end that you just put through the eye of the needle, you will pierce about 3/8 of an inch down from the end, and just pull it down on the shank of the needle, and then the long end of your ribbon is what you pull at this point, and it tightens up right on the eye of the needle up here, and that's called your needle lock. At the other end of your silk, you don't need it that long, you're going to tie a knot. There is a soft knot that you can use where you wrap your silk over your finger and just pierce it twice and pull that whole thing down over your beginning knot, and that ties the traditional silk ribbon embroidery knot. I found that a lot of times that pulls through the surface of my fabric, so a lot of times I don't do that knot, I just tie a knot at the end. Okay, to begin, your pieces will be marked. There are quite a few ways to transfer the pattern to your cloth. One is using the sewing tracing paper that's designed for sewing or marking your fabrics. And or you can just freehand your design on your projects, or your customers can. But within the make and take project, you'll probably have a marked piece of fabric for your students. Again, I'm working on a French knot here, so I can show it to you in a wider piece of material. Being the silk ribbon, the 4mm wide silk ribbon. I've come up from the back side of my project, and I'm holding the silk with my left hand, about 3 inches away from the surface of your work. In that 3-inch section, with your needle aiming towards your left hand, I'm going to wrap once, twice, and 3 times around that needle. Pull the needle point back to the surface and pierce the surface, not at the same spot that your silk came up from the back side. Again, I tighten up around the shank of the needle and go back through the surface. I hold everything so it doesn't loosen up on me, and continue tightening that loop until it's under your finger, and you can see that a decent French knot was made. I'll do 2 more here and do this flower 3 times around, go back down, tighten up around the shank, pull this through, holding on to your silk and letting your knot tighten up. 1 more time. Hold the thread coming out of the fabric, wrap your shank around 3 times, go back down to the surface, not in the same hole, let go of your needle, tighten up around the shank. Not tight, but just so you don't see any loops. Hold it and continue pushing this through the surface. And there you have 3 French knots. On the back side, with your silk ribbon, you can just take a couple of stitches to end within stitches you've made on the back side. And cut off your ribbon. Let me show you with a piece of green how to make those stem stitches. Pardon me, Japanese leaf stitch. That needle lock, by the way, needs to be, the silk needs to be cut off the needle. It's not going to pull away. Or if it's pulled away, I'm doing the needle lock one more time here. If it's pulled away, normally what happened was when they swung the needle around and pierced the end, they've pierced it way up near the top of the silk, and that will ravel. So come down here and pierce. And what you'll find now, there's wordless directions for doing this on your project sheet. So you pull the long end and pull that tight, and it won't come off your needle. On the other side, I do tie a knot. Again, without my glasses. Okay, and now I'm ready to continue my pattern here. Here's the finished product in case you can't see the pattern. I'm going to come up between two of my French knots, close to them but not interrupt their stitch. And I'm going to lay the silk down along the fabric and pierce where I want to end the stitch. I found that the shorter, chunkier ones, I find they look a little bit nicer in the design. And as you can see, with silk ribbon embroidery, you want it to be soft and not tight looking. So you do take care to keep your stitches loose and pull through. And I didn't really talk about the stitch itself then, so I will now. You're going to come up from the back side. This is the same stitch we were working on in the last project with the red fiber, or with the red silk. You're going to lay this down where you want your stitch to be and pierce it. Now, I said that the silk should look nice and full and not tight. If you lay it down flat and pierce it where you want to pierce it, it's going to look flat. If you pierce your stitch where you want it to end but come back ever so slightly, just giving it a little more fullness, you will find that your stitches puff up more and push through. So again, what I've done is I've pierced the end and pulled this green until I get a nice point, which you probably saw better in the red silk because the silk was wider. But I come up, lay my silk down on where I want to take the stitch and go back just a smidgen to make it be a nice puff instead of flat up against the cloth. So you can see there, that is the ribbon stitch. Now you can also use the same stitch but make it much longer, so it might be the leaves to an iris or another flower with much longer leaves. Again, to apply, once I'm done with this, you know what I forgot is I forgot to put my yellow in. Let me just put the yellow French knot inside, and I'll leave that cord hanging. A lot of times when I am working with the silk ribbon, I personally work with quite a few needles. I might leave something dangling and get back to it later, so that's okay. Do watch your needles though in your make and takes. My glue is in the way from the hot glue on my fingernail. Do watch the needles at the make and takes, because people tend to just put them with all their stuff and walk away, and your needles might be limited. In other words, you don't have a free needle for every person. All I'm doing here is the French knot in the center, the same as I've been doing my French knots. Go back down in, knot the same hole, wrap around, and pierce and pull through. And there is a completed forget-me-not or a little violet flower. Again, end your stitch on the back side. So I'm going to knot I'm not going to show you how to apply your Aida cloth because I've already covered it in the last project. Your trim around here works basically the same using this white trim, and your bottom trim here also finishes up your project. So I think that gives you quite a knowledge of ribbon embroidery, and I hope that you could see with the camera what I was doing. Now I do have one last thing I'd like to talk about, and it's a little out of my reach. Okay, what I have in front of me here are brand new kits that we came out with using stitchery on the Adornable boxes. We do have we've got 6 different Adornables, and we have 6 different designs of these kits. They include everything, including a needle, for your customer to walk away with the kit and be able to complete the project. They might want to use a hoop, however, and the hoop is not included. And it says that the hoop is optional, and some people prefer to work with a hoop. This is a softer type linen, so your customer is free to do their embroidery however they like. Another kit here, this was the ribbon embroidery, but another kit here, we have regular embroidery and ribbon embroidery included. And this makes a nice holiday look. Over here, what I have is cross stitch in this kit, so you have your embroidery threads and everything you need to complete this project. We also, when you're explaining about the kits, we do have a flyer that shows the Adornables, and also shows inside the shapes and sizes of the boxes. They also come in black, which I haven't mentioned today. And on the back side, you do have the other of the 6 kits to show. And you will be able to get a price list during your demonstration. I hope that covers most everything that you need to know. If any of you as demonstrators do have problems, do your projects that we send you ahead of time. If you've got problems, please call. We want you to feel comfortable presenting our product and have gained knowledge about creating them, so you can creating the project, so you can pass the knowledge along to the consumer. And in doing so, in making it look easy and having you be comfortable with the projects, that helps sell the product, and that's our main goal, is to get these products out there in the hands of the customers and go on with our demonstrating. Thank you very much.